Sit down and zip it. Those words, my words, to a boy who couldn't have been older than 12 years old, standing in my courtroom with his chin up and his eyes hard like he had already decided this room did not matter, like I did not matter. I have been sitting on this bench for a very long time. I've seen arrogance walk through that door in many shapes. Grown men in expensive suits, women with lawyers who cost more per hour than most people earn in a week. I have seen all kinds of disrespect. The kind that comes in quietly and the kind that announces itself the moment it walks through the door. But I had never, not once in all my years on this bench, seen it come wrapped in a school backpack and a pair of brand new sneakers that probably cost $300. My name is Judge Judy Scheindlin. This is my courtroom. And the day this boy walked in here, I had absolutely no idea the next few hours would leave every single person in this room completely silent. If you believe that respect has no age limit, that no child, no matter how rich his father is, gets to walk into a court of law and speak down to a judge, then stay right here. You are going to want to see exactly what happens next. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now, because the stories I bring you are the ones that stay with you long after you've walked away from the screen. The morning had started like most mornings. My bailiff was stationed at the door. The gallery was already half full, families sitting nervously, a few people whispering to each other with their hands cupped over their mouths the way people do when they're trying to look calm, but absolutely are not. The room smelled like old wood and fresh paper, the way it always does, the way it has for as long as I've been coming through that door. The first case was called Case Number 2026, TR 471, the State versus Marcus Elliott Tremont, Jr. I looked up from my notes. Walking toward the defendant's side of the room was a boy, a child. He could not have been more than 12, maybe 13 at the absolute outside. He was wearing a cream-colored polo shirt with a small green logo on the chest. His jeans were pressed perfectly, the kind of press that doesn't happen at home, that happens at a dry cleaner that charges by the crease. His sneakers were bright white and completely spotless. His hair was cut neat and close. He looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine for children who had never once been told the word no. Walking beside him was a man I assumed was his father, Marcus Elliott Tremont, Sr., tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark navy suit with a gold watch on his wrist that caught the courtroom light every single time he moved his arm. He had the kind of face that was accustomed to being listened to, not because he had earned it particularly, but because he had always had enough money that listening to him was simply easier than not. He did not look at me when he entered. He looked around the room first, slowly, the way people do when they are checking to see who is watching them, who is important, who can be useful. He cataloged the room. Then he sat down. He still had not looked at me. That was his first mistake. There would be others. Behind them, on the other side of the room, sat a woman named Gloria Haynes. Gloria was 53 years old. She walked with a slight limp, the permanent result of a car accident 3 years prior that had left her with chronic pain in her left knee that she managed every single day without complaint and without anyone handing her anything extra because of it. She worked the early morning shift at a bakery on Aldrich Street. She was there at 4 in the morning when most of the city was still asleep. She made sandwiches and pastries from 4 until noon. She earned $11.50 an hour. Gloria was in my courtroom because on the morning of October 7th, young Marcus had ridden his bicycle through a crosswalk at full speed and crashed directly into her. She had been walking to catch the bus for her shift. The impact had knocked her completely off her feet. She had scraped both of her palms on the pavement. She had bruised her ribs so severely that she missed 4 days of work because she could barely breathe without a sharp, stabbing pain cutting through her side. She lost almost $200 in wages she could not afford to lose. And her phone, the old phone she used to track her bus schedule and stay in contact with her daughter, had been shattered in the fall. Gloria was not angry when she sat down. She looked tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from one bad night's sleep. The kind that lives deep in a person's bones and settles in over years of early mornings and long shifts and not enough in between. She held a folder of papers in her hands and kept her eyes on the table in front of her with the quiet dignity of a woman who had nothing to prove to anyone in this room. I introduced myself to the boy and his father calmly, the way I always do, because calm is not weakness, calm is control. Good morning, Marcus. My name is Judge Judy Scheindlin. Do you understand why you are here today? The boy looked at his father first. Already, before he had even opened his mouth, he was looking to his father for permission. Then he looked back at me. Yeah, he said. It was an accident. Not yes, ma'am. Not good morning, Your Honor. Not even the bare minimum of a complete sentence delivered with basic human courtesy. Just, yeah. His father smiled slightly, as if that were a perfectly acceptable way to address a judge in a courtroom, as if he had raised his son exactly right, and this moment was proof of it. I let it go, for now. I asked Gloria to describe what had happened. She spoke quietly and carefully. She told me about the crosswalk, the early morning light, the sound of wheels coming fast before she had any time whatsoever to react. She told me about lying on the sidewalk, trying to breathe and not being able to. She told me that the boy had not stopped, that he had looked back at her once, looked her right in the face, and kept riding. No apology, no pause, no, "Are you okay?" Just gone. I watched young Marcus while Gloria spoke. He was looking at his phone under the table. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that there are very few things that accelerate my patience out of the room faster than someone looking at their phone when another human being is describing being hurt. It is disrespectful, it is dismissive, and it tells me everything I need to know about a person in approximately 4 seconds. Marcus, my voice was even. Put that phone away. Now. He looked up slowly, like I had asked him something inconvenient, and put the phone in his pocket with the energy of someone doing me an enormous personal favor that they expected to be thanked for. His father leaned over and whispered something in the boy's ear. "Mr. Tremont." I looked directly at him. "Do not coach your son during testimony. I will not say it again." His jaw tightened. He sat back. That was the first crack in the polish. There would be more. And if you are watching this right now, and you can already feel where this is going, if your chest is already tight, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise you, what is coming next is going to make everything you've heard so far feel like the opening act. The second confrontation came about 20 minutes into the hearing. I had asked Marcus directly whether he had looked back at Gloria after the collision. He shrugged. A full, theatrical, couldn't careless shrug. I saw her get up. She was fine. I said she was not fine, Marcus. She missed 4 days of work. She had bruised ribs. She lost money she could not afford to lose. He said, without a single flicker of hesitation, "That's not my problem." The gallery stirred immediately. A woman near the back made a sound under her breath, not quite a gasp, but close. My bailiff straightened up. I could feel the temperature in the room shift the way it does when something has been said that cannot be unsaid. I kept my voice completely even. "It became your problem the moment your bicycle hit her in a legally protected crosswalk." Then I introduced the first piece of evidence. My clerk presented a printed report from the city's traffic camera system. The crosswalk at the corner of Milner Avenue and Post Road had a camera mounted on a traffic light pole, and the footage had been reviewed. A still image had been printed and submitted to the court showing Marcus's bicycle entering the crosswalk at a speed that was clearly above what is safe or legal near a pedestrian zone. In the image, Gloria could be seen mid-fall, her folder of papers scattering in the air around her. The timestamp at the bottom of the image read 5:47 in the morning. I showed it to Marcus. He looked at it for a few seconds with the expression of someone who had already decided their response before they even saw the evidence. He said, "That could be anyone." His father immediately leaned forward. "Your Honor, the image quality is—" I held up my hand. "Mr. Tremont, you are not presenting a case. You are here as a witness and a guardian. Please wait until you are spoken to." He went quiet. His eyes, however, were doing quite a bit of talking on their own. I turned back to the boy. "Is that you in the image, Marcus?" He crossed his arms across his chest, sat back in his chair, and said, "My dad says I don't have to answer that." I looked at that boy for a long moment. I said, "Your father is correct that you have certain rights, but I want you to understand something, and I want you to really hear me. This is not a game. This is not a television program. This is a real court of law, and that woman sitting across from you is a real person who was hurt. The fact that you are 12 years old does not change that. The fact that your father has a gold watch does not change that. The fact that I am a woman does not change that. Are we clear?" Marcus glanced at Gloria. Then he looked away. And then, without being asked, without invitation, without a single ounce of self-awareness, his father decided to speak. "Judge, I think it would be helpful for you to understand who you are dealing with here." He said it pleasantly, conversationally, as though he were at a dinner party and was about to offer some useful context. "I serve on the City Development Board. I know the mayor personally. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to handle this privately and quickly." The room went very still. I looked at Mr. Tremont. I looked at him for a good long moment before I said a single word. Mr. Tremont, my voice was completely calm, which, if you have watched me for any length of time, you know is not necessarily a sign that everything is fine. I want you to listen to me very carefully. The name of the mayor means nothing in this room. The City Development Board means nothing in this room. Your gold watch means nothing in this room. The only things that matter in this courtroom are the truth and the law. Those two things are the same for you as they are for every single person who has ever walked through that door. Do you understand me? He held my gaze for 1 second. 2. Then he looked down at the table. Second crack. Bigger this time. The second piece of evidence came from Gloria's phone records, specifically a timeline that her daughter had helped reconstruct. On the morning of October 7th, Gloria had sent a text message at 5:45 in the morning saying she was heading to the bus stop. Her next message was sent at 6:22 from the sidewalk saying she had been knocked down and could not stand up straight. Her daughter had arrived and taken a photograph. That photograph had been submitted to the court. In it, Gloria's palms were bandaged. Her coat was torn at the shoulder. She was sitting on the curb with her eyes closed and her head tilted back slightly, the way people do when they are trying very hard not to cry in front of anyone. I showed it to Marcus. I looked at him the entire time he was looking at it. Does this look like someone who is fine? He looked at the photograph for approximately 2 seconds. Then he said, "And I need you to really absorb this. She looks dramatic." A woman in the gallery audibly gasped. My bailiff took one deliberate step forward. Gloria did not react. She did not flinch. She did not turn her head. She kept her eyes forward with the kind of quiet, unshakable dignity that takes a lifetime to build, the kind that cannot be purchased, cannot be inherited, and clearly had not been taught to the boy sitting across the room from her. I said, "Marcus, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to show this court some character, one more chance to demonstrate that there is something inside you worth working with." He said nothing. He stared at the table. And then came the moment that silenced every single person in that room. His father leaned back in his chair, folded his arms across his chest, and looked directly at me, not with nervousness, not with embarrassment, but with the flat, bored expression of a man who had decided this was all taking far too long. And Marcus, watching his father, seeming to absorb every signal the man was sending, stood up slightly from his chair, raised his finger, pointed it across my bench at me, and said, "You're just some old lady in a fancy robe. My dad owns half this city. You cannot do anything to us. We will be out of here in 10 minutes, and you will still be sitting in this little room pretending you matter. 10 seconds. That is how long the silence lasted after those words left that child's mouth. 10 full seconds in which no one moved. No one breathed. The woman near the back who had gasped before was completely still. My bailiff had both hands at his sides. My clerk had stopped typing entirely. The only sound in that room was the faint hum of the overhead lights. I did not raise my voice. I did not slam my gavel. I sat back slowly in my chair and I looked at that boy, really looked at him, and what I felt in that moment was not what you might expect. It was not anger. Lord knows I have felt anger in this courtroom, real righteous anger, and this was not it. What I felt was sadness, deep, genuine, bone-level sadness, because behind those hard eyes and that pointed finger and those $300 sneakers was a child, a 12-year-old child who had been taught deliberately, consistently, over years, by the man sitting right next to him, that the world was something you bought your way through, that people only mattered if they had power, that accountability was for other people, that an old judge in a small courtroom was nothing more than a minor inconvenience between him and the parking lot. And I knew right then that what happened next was not simply about a bicycle and a crosswalk. This was about what this boy was becoming. Right now, if you are a parent watching this, or if you believe that how we treat people when we think we have power over them says everything about who we truly are, subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because what I am about to say to this boy is something I have wanted to say for a long time, and I want the whole world to hear it. I looked at Marcus directly. I said his name slowly. Marcus. His finger was lowering. Slowly. Sit down. He sat. Marcus, I want you to listen to me. Not to your father right now. Not to anyone else in this room. To me. Can you do that? He didn't answer, but he was listening. I have been reading people in this room for a very long time, and I could tell, behind all of that performance, behind everything his father had coached into him, he was listening. I said, "You told me I was just some old lady in a fancy robe. You're right that I'm old. I've been sitting in this room for a long time. And do you know what I have learned in all of those years? I have learned that the people who walk in here thinking they own the world are almost always the people who understand it the least. You said your father owns half this city. Marcus, let me tell you something about this city. This city is built by people like Gloria, People who wake up at 4 in the morning when it is cold and dark and the rest of the world is still asleep. People who do not have a gold watch or a Navy suit or a seat on a development board. People who pack sandwiches and ride the bus and show up every single day, not because someone is going to applaud them for it, but because that is who they are. That woman sitting across from you did not ask to be knocked down in a crosswalk. She did not ask to lose $200 she could not afford to lose. She did not ask for bruised ribs that made it painful to breathe for 4 days, but she got all of that because of you. You looked back at her, Marcus. The camera shows it clearly. You looked back, you saw her on the ground, and you kept writing. And I need you to think about that choice. Really think about it, because that choice tells me something about you that I don't believe you want it to tell me. His father started to speak. I didn't even look at him. Mr. Tremont, I will get to you momentarily. Right now, I am speaking to your son. I turned back to the boy. Something was moving behind his eyes. Something small, something real. Marcus, you said I cannot do anything to you. I want to show you that you are very, very wrong. But more than showing you that, I want to show you that what I am about to do is not purely about punishment. It is about something that no amount of money can buy for you, no matter how much of it your family has. It is called accountability. It means owning what you did. It means not running from it. It means not hiding behind a last name or a seat on a board or a phone call to the mayor's office. It means looking at what you did and owning it and deciding to do better. I let that sit in the air for a long moment. Then I began the sentencing. Marcus Elliott Tremont, Jr. This court finds you responsible for reckless operation of a bicycle resulting in injury to a pedestrian, failure to render aid, and leaving the scene of an incident. First, you will pay full restitution to Gloria Haynes. That includes $214 in lost wages, $68 for the replacement of her phone, and $150 toward her medical costs. The total is $432. It will be paid within 30 days, not 31, 30. Second, your bicycle privileges are suspended for 90 days in the city. If you are found riding during that period, the suspension doubles. Don't test me on that one. Third, you will complete 60 hours of community service at the Aldrich Street Community Kitchen, which happens to be located 1 block from the bakery where Gloria begins work at 4 o'clock every single morning. You will report there every Saturday from 8 in the morning until noon for 15 weeks. You will wash dishes, you will mop floors, you will serve meals to people in need. You will be supervised by the kitchen director, who will report your attendance and your attitude directly to this court. And Marcus, attitude counts. I will be watching. Fourth, you will write a handwritten apology letter to Gloria Haynes, not typed, not dictated by your father and transcribed by you, written by you in your own words, in your own handwriting, in ink, on paper. It must be a minimum of 1 full page. It must be submitted to this court within 14 days for my review. I have read thousands of letters in this room, Marcus. I know immediately, when something is genuine and when it is not. If I do not find it genuine, you will write it again, and again, if necessary. I turn to the father. Now, Mr. Tremont, you advised your son before this hearing not to answer questions. You attempted to use political influence.
Okay, pause right there. This is the exact moment everything changes, not legally but psychologically. Because what you're watching isn't just disrespect, it's learned power. A 12-year-old doesn't invent this kind of arrogance on his own. He's repeating what's been modeled to him. And here's the real question for you watching: what should matter more in a courtroom like this, influence or accountability? Because in the next few seconds, Judge Judy is about to draw that line in a way this boy will never forget.
My bailiff stepped forward. Mr. Tremont, please stand. The father stood slowly. The gold watch caught the light one final time, and the smooth, easy boardroom confidence, the face that was used to being listened to, used to getting its way, used to the world rearranging itself around it, was completely gone. In its place was something I have seen before and recognize immediately. The sudden, cold, visceral understanding that this room is not his office. This bench is not his conference table. I am not his secretary, his subordinate, or his speed bump. The handcuffs clicked onto Mr. Tremont's wrists. They made a sound that seemed very loud in that very quiet room. And Marcus, for the first time since he had walked through my door, looked like exactly what he was: a scared child. The hard look was entirely gone. The pointed finger was gone. The performance was gone. He was just a boy watching his father get walked out of a room in handcuffs, and he did not know what to do with that. Mr. Tremont, You will be held for 4 hours. You will have a review hearing scheduled for November 3rd. At that hearing, you will answer fully for your conduct in this courtroom today. Marcus. I waited until his eyes found mine. Your father is coming back. He is not going to prison. He is going to sit in a room for a few hours and think about his choices. I want you to do the same thing. Think about who you want to be. Not who your money says you are. Not who your father's name says you are. Who you want to be, because that is the only thing in this life that actually belongs to you. He sat back down slowly. He did not say a word, but his eyes were wet. 4 months later, my clerk brought me a note from the director of the Aldrich Street Community Kitchen. It said that Marcus Tremont had completed all 60 hours of his community service. It said that in the final 2 weeks, he had started arriving early, before he was required to, without being asked, without anyone making him. It said he had learned the names of the regular visitors who came in for meals. It said that one Saturday morning, an elderly man had dropped his tray, and Marcus had been the first person there, the first one to go to him, clean up the mess carefully, and bring him a fresh warm plate, and then sit with him for a few minutes. The director wrote, "He is a good kid. I think he just needed someone to show him that." I also received the apology letter. It was 3 pages long. In it, Marcus wrote that he had genuinely not understood, until he started working in that kitchen, what it meant to need something and not have it. He wrote that he thought about Gloria every single Saturday when he walked past the bus stop on his way in. He wrote that he was sorry he had not stopped. He was sorry for what he had said to the judge. He wrote, "I didn't know how to be sorry before. I think I'm learning." I folded that letter carefully and placed it in a file I keep in my desk drawer. I keep it there because some days this work is hard. Some days I sit on this bench and I wonder if anything I do in this room truly changes anything at all. And then I open that drawer and I read that letter again. Late in the afternoon, after the gallery has emptied and the bailiff has gone home and my clerk has turned off her computer and the room has gone quiet, I sometimes sit at this bench alone for a few minutes. I think about all the people who have stood in front of me over the years, the guilty and the innocent, the proud and the broken, the ones who changed and the ones who didn't, and I think about a boy in a cream-colored polo shirt and spotless